For a brief moment in the late 1980s and early 1990s, it seemed like no one in Hollywood could stop Steven Seagal. He walked onto the screen with quiet confidence, barely raising his voice, barely breaking a sweat, and villains fell around him like dominoes. To audiences, he wasn't just another action star. He looked like a real warrior, calm, controlled, dangerous. But behind that unstoppable image was a life far more complicated than the movies ever showed. Fame arrived fast, and what it gave him, it slowly took away as well. Before Hollywood knew his name, Steven Seagal was just a sickly kid born on April 10, 1952, in Lansing, Michigan. Breathing itself was sometimes a struggle. Asthma attacks left him weak and isolated while other kids ran outside. Imagine that for a moment. The man who would later become famous for brutal fight scenes once struggled just to catch his breath. Life has a strange sense of irony, doesn't it? Everything began to change when his family moved to California. Warmer air helped his lungs, but something else changed too. Seagal discovered martial arts. What started as curiosity became obsession. Discipline replaced weakness. Pain became routine. By 1974, at just 22, he made a bold decision that few Americans dared at the time. He moved to Japan to study Aikido seriously. Japan was not welcoming to outsiders in traditional dojos. Respect had to be earned. Day after day he trained, thrown onto the mat again and again, until bruises became normal. But he refused to quit. Over time, he shocked everyone. He became one of the first Americans to operate an Aikido dojo in Japan, a milestone that gave him real credibility in martial arts circles. Then, Hollywood noticed. In 1988, at 36 years old, Seagal exploded onto the screen with Above the Law. Audiences sensed something different. His movements weren't flashy. They were efficient, almost surgical. Within a few years, he delivered hit after hit, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and the massive 1992 success Under Siege. The film earned more than $150 million and pushed him into the same conversation as action giants like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But success carries weight. Careers rise quickly, and sometimes fall even faster. By the late 1990s, critics had turned harsh. New action stars arrived. Studios lost interest. Films that once dominated theaters began appearing quietly on DVD shelves. At the same time, his personal life grew turbulent. Marriages collapsed. Family relationships suffered. The man who once looked invincible on screen was fighting battles the audience could not see. And then time delivered its final lesson. Injuries from decades of martial arts and stunt work began to slow him down. The explosive speed of his early films faded. The body that built the legend started reminding him of every fall, every throw, every impact. Yet there is something strangely human about this final chapter. Today, Seagal lives a quieter life. The spotlight is dimmer, the applause softer. But perhaps the real story was never about invincibility. It was about survival. About a boy who struggled to breathe, who turned discipline into strength, and who discovered that fame may build a legend. But life eventually asks every legend the same question. What remains when the noise finally fades?